This is my most divisive cookie set yet. My name is Cami Bird. I am the creator of Iced.Kitchen, a monthly cookie decorating guide. And this month we are doing line art cookies. Now, the reason why these are so divisive is you are either going to love how these turned out, have a fun time decorating them, or you are going to think they're ugly and not art at all. And if that is not kind of the definition of modern art, I don't know what is. That doesn't matter. This month we are going to be decorating a bear, a moose, and a fox using some abstract shapes in the background and a single line. Now, you will see in the video, it doesn't necessarily have to be one single line of icing piped onto the cookie, but we want it to look that way. I fell in love with this style of decorating a few years ago when I made some Thanksgiving cookies that had turkeys on them. Every single turkey looked different and I really enjoyed it. And I think these can look like really elevated cookies depending on the audience without taking a whole lot of effort. So let's get into mixing, bagging, and decorating these cookies. One thing to note, be sure to stick around all the way to the end where I talk about how you can save all of your icing to use for next month's cookie set, where we will be using all of the same colors. We're gonna do our best to one bowl method this. And what that means is we're gonna use one bowl to mix all of our colors and all of our icing. And we're starting with white because you start with your lightest and you go to your darkest. We're not adding any food coloring to this, we're just adding water, and we're mixing until we get like an Elmer's glue flow off of the spatula. You can see we did not get there yet, so we added a little bit more water. Some people like to have a little spray of water, of misting it in. I just go with a tablespoon and kind of add to my heart's desire, and it screws me up sometimes. We got the white done. Now let's move on to the orange. I'm adding more yellow than I am red because we like to stick to using primary colors here. I splashed all over the table, very, very overzealous. And we're mixing, looking for that Elmer's glue flow off of the spatula. We got it, so now we're moving on to green. And for this, we're doing yellow and blue, and we want a lot more yellow than blue so that we can get a pretty solid green. And we add water every single time after we add food coloring to just get that flow going in there. And we're mixing, mixing, mixing. Elmer's glue. Perfect. Next up we have blue. We're just going in with a straight blue. We don't want to add too much. The key to blue is if you want it light, add just a little bit at a time, but if you want like the blue that's on your food coloring, you want to add it until it's no longer changing color. Now I thinned mine out too much, so I just added some powdered sugar so I could get to that Elmer's glue flow off of the spatula. And we're ending with black. I don't mind that there's a kind of a lot of blue left in this because the black takes a while to develop in the cookie world. That's what we say. We got it to a dark gray, love it, perfect. Now let's set our stage for how we're setting up. I put down my parchment, my little turntable, paper towel, scribe. Then I'm gonna go ahead and grab my colors and my cookies. Now the last thing that we need to do before we can start decorating is cut the tips of our tipless piping bags. Now, tipless just means that you're not using a piping tip on it. That's really it. So you can kind of create your piping tip, and that's what we're doing by cutting the end. We want a straight across. Less is more. You can always cut more later. We're going to start with the bear cookie, and we're going to pipe on kind of a wonky-ish circle. It doesn't need to be a true circle. We want it to elongate a little bit more on one side, and we're going to do that with blue. Once you fill that in, we're going to outline the cookie with the white icing, and then once that is outlined, we are just going to fill that in. Nothing here needs to be very precise, but take your time. I am showing this in real time, but I also like to speed decorate. I don't know, something about a hobby. It's like, let's get this done. Probably capitalism, if I'm being real. So I'm going through, I'm filling this out. All of my colors, not all of my colors, all of my icing is kind of blending well together. And then once I have that all piped on, I'm just going to come in with my scribe and even it out. You can definitely see this spot down here where I didn't connect the fill with the line. we're just evening it out. And then once that's done, we're gonna let this dry. So go through, create the base of the rest of your cookies, and then we're gonna come back to finish. You can see it's all matte on top, it's dry. This is the hardest part of the whole decorating because you really have to take your time, and I'm going much slower. I'm basing this off kind of a line drawing I've seen of a bear. And the idea is that this will look like it is one singular piped on black line. And so I'm going very slow. It's semi-intentional, but also if a mistake happens and the line doesn't go how I want it to go, it's art. This is modern art right here. And so I'm creating, we have the outline of the whole bear, and now I'm going through and I'm going to create the eyes. And that is going to finish off our bear and the little face framing inside. And there's the bear. For our next cookie, the fox, we're going to follow similar steps, but a slightly different blobby orange shape in the middle. It's almost like we're doing a side silhouette of a dog. If you're like a 3-year-old drawing it, that's the type of blob we're looking for. It's not really a side silhouette, but it's not a full circle, it's not a triangle. I don't know how to describe this shape. It's an orange blob. Once you fill in the orange blob, outline the cookie with your white icing, and then you're going to fill in the rest of that cookie space with your white. And remember, after this is filled in, you're coming in with your scribe, you're evening it out, and then you're setting this aside, I'd probably say for about 10 minutes, so you can get what we call a crust over in the cookie community. This just means your bottom layer has set. It's crusted. It'll look a little bit more matte if you touched it with your finger. I'm saying touched, not poked, not squished. But if you touched it with your finger, it's going to not move. So I'm starting off with the fox. Again, we are making it look like it is a one-line drawing. Now you will notice here, mine was not a one-line drawing. I redid that first line, and here I do it again. I'm redoing that second line, and I'm going very slow. A big trick to making it look like one line and working in lines in general is letting the icing kind of flow out of your piping bag instead of trying to force it out of your piping bag. And this is just something you just feel for, like when you're driving and you start feeling for what it means to accelerate. You know, when you first start driving, it's a little lurchy. And it's the same with piping. It can be a little almost lurchy where you can get those blobs on the end of your lines. And so the fox, I've came in 3 or 4 times to create a different one line. Last up we have the moose. Again, we start with a similar colored blob in the middle. This one is much more of a triangular shape. Now I went a little too sharp on one corner, so I kind of puffed it out with my icing because we don't have to be very precise with this. The only thing we're really caring about precision is when it comes to this white outline, we want it to be the edge of the cookie as much as possible. So, I mean, you can even see here, the precisions, it is what it is. We're working with cookies, people. So I'm going through and I'm outlining the cookie with white, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to fill in that outline, all that extra cookie negative space with this white icing. And I will say the mousse is probably the hardest, but when it comes to these single line iced cookies, the hard ones are what I find the most fun. And I just don't take yourself too seriously with these. The first mousse that I decorated, I looked at it and burst out laughing. Did it look like a mousse? Yes, it did. Also, it looked absolutely ridiculous, which frankly, that's exactly what a mousse looks like. Absolutely ridiculous. If you've seen one in person, you know what I'm talking about. So this cookie is all evened out, almost. I'm almost done. We're going to let it dry. Oh, look, it's dry. And we're going to come in. We start, this cookie in particular is going to be done in 2 different lines, but again, we want it to look like one line. So we're starting with the face of the mousse. You are looking straight at it, and we are doing the nose, the mouth, the eyes, and there's our face. And so this is where it really gets fun. doing the antlers and the ears. So we start off straight out to the side. That's how moose antlers look. And then they kind of stick up. That's what I'm gonna say. And so we're doing these loop-de-loops. And then we get to the ear, and we want that to look a little bit more intentional. And look, I've picked up my piping bag at least 3 times at this point. And then we finish the antlers. You can tell they look entirely different from one side to the other. And this was probably my best one, but there's the moose. So what did you think? Did you think these were so hard? Did you think that they're ugly? Did you have a really fun time decorating them? The first moose I decorated, which is not even featured here, I actually did a sample cookie of it. Crazy. I just laughed as soon as I finished it. I was so focused on decorating, and then I kind of sat back and I just started giggling because I thought it looked so silly. Still looks like a moose. It accomplished the goal, but it looked silly and I had fun doing it, and I still think it looks good in the end, and I hope that's what you'll walk away with here as well. You stuck around this long, so how can you use all of your icing for next month? What you're gonna do is grab some fresh piping bags, ones that have not had the tips cut off yet, and you're going to empty out all of your icing into a new icing bag. Now, keep your colors separate. Put your white icing in a new bag with just white icing, your blue icing in just a bag with just blue icing. Tie off the ends and stick it in the back of your freezer. If you have done this with other icing, please just write the date that you put it in the freezer on it. But otherwise, if this is the first time you've done it, bag it up, put it in the freezer. Next month, you're gonna pull it out of the freezer kind of around the time you're ready to decorate, maybe an hour or 2 beforehand, and just let it sit on your counter and thaw. Let all of those icing bags sit on your counter, thaw, and then when it comes time to decorate, grab an icing bag and just rub it between your hands. You haven't cut the tip off or anything like that. Just rub it between your hands, make sure it's warm, and you're just trying to make sure you're squishing it, you're making sure it's all incorporated, because sometimes your icing can separate. You can still use it, you just need to mix it back together. With your bag, squish it, rub it, swing it around if you want, whatever the case may be. Just make sure it's all room temperature, make sure that it's all mixed together, and then you can get to cutting off the tips and decorating again, where we will be using orange, blue, green, black line, and white as a base. If you do need to make more icing next month, of course I will be walking through how to do that, but if you have a lot of leftover icing, you might as well use it, right? So I hope I see you next month. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you have a suggestion for any sort of decorating challenge you want to take on next month, or if there's a specific theme you want to cover, drop it in the comments below. Always welcome to receiving some ideas and suggestions from you. And if you decorated this set, please share it with me. You can email it with me. You can tag me at Iced.Kitchen almost anywhere online. And I just want to see what you create.